Welcome back to Junk with Junior. We got a sweetheart Chevelle time. So, what are we doing with the Chevelle? Well, she's bone stock other than the wheels and tires. So, it's time to get rid of that 283. It is smooth as glass, but it ain't got no power. And it's a big, heavy car. So, we got to upgrade it some. Clean as a whistle, though. Gosh dang, it is so nice to see something just so basic in there. I love all the modern, complicated EFI crap, whatever, but it's refreshing to see something that is plain and simple. Now, as far as the car, sweetheart crew cab of a car, which you know I dig that. Got some killer wheels on it. Definitely give it an updated look there. We got some center caps to put on, but we got to get all of this out because this big dog's going in there. So we got a 350, nothing too crazy, but a significant improvement over what we have there. AFR cylinder heads and intake, really clean setup, and that's the kind of the deal, is we want to keep it clean and simple just like it is now. So nothing left to do but everything. So we got to get that one out. Gonna just start tinkering with this, disconnecting some stuff, and then probably tomorrow night we'll go ahead and rip it out, get the transmission out because the power glide's coming out. We got a 400 going in it with a 2800 to 3000 stall converter because we got a pretty rowdy cam in this engine. So this car is going to get a whole nother heartbeat in it. Man, it's a cool rig and it's so clean. It is just factory in here. It's all bone stock, just smooth as could be. I do like it, but I can't wait to see how this thing runs with some actual power under the hood. Radiators out, unhook the transmission cooler lines as well, letting them drip drain a little bit so they don't make quite such a mess, and called in some reinforcements so we can get some of this nitpicking stuff out of the way, the little stuff. Brought my main man Weston out here to get the air cleaner off, and we'll get some wires unhooked, and this thing, it's coming apart really quick because there's just not much there. It's such a bare bones small block. It's a pretty sweet little deal. So we're going to try to get this thing to the point where we can get it lifted out tonight, and then maybe when Jimmy the owner's here tomorrow, we can go ahead and slide this dude out of here. Well, good news and bad news. It still looks quite similar to when we started, but as far as I know, this engine is ready to come out. So I already had it jacked up, climbed underneath, got the drive shaft out, got our transmission lines off the transmission, unhooked the starter, got that big old bulky cast iron starter out of the way. Transmission mount is loose, got the 2 bolts out of that. So as far as I know, everything is ready just to slide right out of this thing, hopefully. We'll see. It should come right out. I don't see any other issues or anything holding it up. We got the motor mount bolts as well. It's just sitting in there. Gravity's doing its job nicely. It's not going anywhere tonight. Weston was out here helping me earlier, so it's always nice when you're underneath the car and you need a different socket. He can run over there and grab it, so that's a big help. It's nice having him out here tinkering and learning how to do this stuff also. So yeah, that's it for tonight. When Jimmy gets here tomorrow, we're going to get this thing out of here and see about getting the new one all bolted up. I don't know if we'll get the new one set in tomorrow night. That'd be really nice if we do, because then I can start tinkering with nuts and bolts here and there when Jimmy's not able to be here, and try to get this thing buttoned up and back on the road for him. We're waiting on a few parts to come in. We did get some headers on the way, and we're not going to run this factory V-belt stuff anymore. The front of the motor is naked over here, and we didn't want to switch the stuff over, so we're actually going with CVF. It's going to be higher mount power steering over here so that it clears the steering box on the Chevelle, because they're kind of unique, and then it's going to be a high mount alternator over here, so it'll be a really nice clean look. It's definitely going to brighten up the engine bay quite a bit. This stuff's cool, but it's just a little plain, stock, and boring, so we'll update that, and that's all for today. Out with the old and almost in with the new. So Jimmy's over here. We went ahead and got the old one snatched out. A little bit of a process. I didn't set up the camera for that. You're not really missing anything. Just a small block Chevy and transmission coming out of the Chevelle there. So that's out. We got to steal a couple things off that engine, a couple heater hose fittings, oil pressure switch, and water temp switch, and then we'll screw them into this intake manifold in the back of the block and get our transmission bolted up here, because I did forget to tell you that not only are we changing the engine, but we're changing transmission as well, going from the 2-speed Power Glide to a 3-speed 400 to make this thing scoot along a lot better. So we got to get that in here and get it bolted up to this engine once we get it off the stand, and then it's ready to go right back in. Alright, so here's the real reason why Jimmy wanted to change this engine. He's full of crap. He just said he wanted more power. He was looking for new exhaust. Check out this bubblegum pile here. That is some straight up big league chew, half a pack. Look at the custom merge pipe back here. Oh yeah, if you can't get to it and load it, just keep scattering and splattering. All right, we got her hanging. It's ready to go back in. Got our 400 transmission on. Got it bolted up the torque converter as well before it goes in. And luckily, we decided to do that outside of the car because we actually had to drill the flex plate for 7/16 bolts instead of the 3/8 from the factory. So that made that a lot easier. And we took the cross member out so we don't have to try to lift it up on there because we are going to have to move it anyways with the different position of the new transmission. So we just got out of the way. We can set the engine and transmission down. We'll put the floor jack under the back of the transmission, jack it up, and then we can set it on the motor mounts here and let it rest on the cross member when we put it back in place. Well, it looks a little more like a car again. Got the engine and transmission back in there. Got to get a different cross member, or excuse me, transmission mount, because when we had the bolt pattern was a little too narrow. Then we can get the cross member slid front to rear and see if it lines up in any holes that are already there if we have to drill them. So back at it tomorrow night. Next on the list of things to do is obviously the cross member, like I just said, and then next will be a pull of spark plugs and wires so we can get our headers down in there and make sure all that stuff clears. Okay, get my fat butt under here. So we got really lucky. Not so much that we got lucky, but just GM engineers knew what the heck they were doing. I don't care what anybody says. GM is smart and really looks into the future on stuff. Just like they use the same bell housing pattern on a small block and big block and LS, they know what they're doing. So what am I talking about under here that they know what they're doing? Exact same cross member from the Power Glide. We just moved it from those holes there, slid it right on back here, didn't have to drill anything. It lines right up just like GM intended it. So that's all bolted up and tight down here. Now we can let the car down on the ground and go work on stuff from the top side. All right, so we got installing the header blues here. So go ahead and pull the two motor mount bolts back out so we can get this driver side rolled in here. The passenger side we know drops in okay with the engine bolted in place, so we're good there. So we can just get this side, then we can go over there and install that one. Fingers crossed we have enough wiggle room because this is a snug fit over here. And unfortunately we don't have a lift, so we can't get the car high enough to push it up from the bottom, which would be awesome. But I don't think that's an option for us. So close. Dang. It was like right there. There we go. Okay. Now that's in place roughly. So while the engine's loose, I'm going to go ahead and put a couple bolts in here, and the gasket will drop in from the top, but I'm going to put a couple bolts just to hold this header in place while we pull it back over and get everything in position. Okay, driver's side header is on and tight, gasket's in place. Jimmy's working on getting our water pump bolt in. We got the starter in from the bottom, so we shouldn't have to deal with any header issues over there. I'm going to go ahead and drop in the passenger side header while he's working on our CVF pulley kit, and we're cruising, man. All right, getting this passenger side header snugged up here. One nice thing they did for us is sent the small 3/8 head header bolt, so it's a 3/8 diameter bolt that goes in the head, but it's also 3/8 wrenching, so that makes life much easier. Jimmy's making a little more progress getting the power steering bracket bolted on over there. We're just going to keep on keeping on. All right, so I love me some made in USA CVF stuff, but there's one bolt that goes behind the power steering pulley. I think the washer's just a little too thick, but I don't have a thin washer, because when the pulley goes up against the bracket there, you have to slide the open end of the 9/16 wrench down in there to tighten it, and there's just enough on the top of this bolt that it wants to lock up the pulley because it touches it. So since I don't have a thin washer, we're just going to cut the bolts on. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. We took right where the head of it kind of rounds over, we just kind of trued it up, got rid of the markings on the top, and then hit it with a file just to knock the burrs off. We can still get plenty of wrench on there with plenty of meat, but we got a shorter bolt, so we should clear now. Next up on the list of things to do, we got to put this car in gear. So what do we need to do? Well, the factory linkage was really bulky, and it connected from the frame to the transmission with like a bell crank kind of setup thing. It was really goofy. It's not going to work on from the Power Glide to this 400. So we grabbed the Locar ACA 1800. It's a stainless steel rod so that we can connect from the shifter tab linkage, if you will, on the bottom of the column down to the transmission. And it's a straight rod from Locar. You may need to put a little bend in it to make it work, but we're going to get all this opened up, get our car jack back up, get some jack stands under it, and see what we have to do to make this hook up on the transmission and the column. Well, so far the installation of this shifter linkage is going quite well. So on the column, the lever here, we've got a 5/16 bolt going through. It has a Heim joint, and they give you some machine Delrin bushings. They have a step on them to locate in that factory hole, which fit perfect in our application. So the next step, and I did get the selector way down there on that arm, or the arm on the selector, excuse me. So that's roughly in the 8 o'clock position is what the instructions are calling for, and you can adjust it accordingly from there. So the next step is going to be to get this rod screwed into that Heim joint, and then we can go underneath, follow some more instructions, and I would assume I didn't read through the entire instructions yet. I'm just going step by step. Then we're going to wind up bolting this Heim joint and adjuster on the lever, and then we can mark this, cut it to length, and before you know it, we'll have some shifter linkage. Shifter linkage is installed, and boy did it turn out really nice. Locar makes some really nice quality products right here in the USA. So that's a stainless rod, aluminum shift lever down on the trans, Heim joints. It's just smooth as butter. Now the only thing that's a little bit off is in the car. It starts off in park, the needle is past the park indicator, but we have to find the new lens that goes in there with the marks on it for PR, D, and then 2L or 1, however they label it, because this car was only a 2-speed. So whenever you get all the way over on the left or the right of park or low gear, they're a little bit off. But for your basics, as far as putting it in drive, it's all there. And let's be honest, once you get a feel for automatic column shifters, you generally don't look at them. You just feel those detents. It's, you know, you start off in park, put your foot on the brake, or in drive, and you're ready to go. But, you know, it would be nice to have that indicator on there that's correct in the event of if somebody else does ever drive the car. So we'll poke around, see if we can find one of those, and then we can pull that column / dash apart and get that installed. But for now, it'll shift and operate just fine. This is a nice place to be sitting, but so we actually have to get a 1.1 cut out of the drive shaft. That didn't work out. We also have to get a radiator in it, coolant, but before we're done for today, we wanted to just go ahead and bump it over, make sure we got spark, see if it pops off for just a second. Obviously we don't have the drive shaft in it, we don't have fluid, you know, the transmission full of fluid yet, but I just want to see if it'll pop or bang so that we know we're on the right track, and then we just have a few loose ends to tidy up. So let's see what happens. Come on, baby. Well, let's make sure the carburetor has gas. There it is. So I've been cruising along, making some progress on this. There's a lot of little tedious work that you got to do in the nooks and crannies that you just can't film it all. It's, you know, too tight of spaces. It's just not worth it. It'd be crappy video, and it's not worth doing it. So not worth watching either. So what I've been going over is all the wiring stuff. So we did go with electric fans on this setup. It had the belt driven before with the shroud. Got rid of that because we went with the CVF kit, which cleaned everything up really nice, and picked up this radiator from a buddy of mine that took it out of his Chevelle because he went with a bigger, better setup for an air-conditioned big block that he has, so he needs a lot more cooling than this. But this is actually a 4-row copper radiator rated for a big block, so that's a really sweet piece. Got a pretty good price on it, and got the fans and the relays with it. So stuck the relays over here underneath the battery down on the inner fender well just above the frame rail, out of sight. Ran the wires up here. We did drill another hole in the intake manifold to put the setting unit / switch in it for the electric fans to turn them on. So extra hole that, you know, AFR didn't put in the manifold. Most people only have 2, so that's fine. We can just drill it and put our own there. And we got our factory switch over here, or setting unit for the gauge, sorry. But just been going over a lot of that little stuff. You know, got our fuel line on here. I did put some insulation on it. I don't like them when they just touch the radiator hose, or excuse me, heater hose like that. They are going to pick up some heat. So we'll put a little insulation on there. Looks good, keeps the heat out of it. Little stuff, all those nitpicking little details that it's just part of the process. You have to do it. If you don't, it's not going to run. So where are we at in this car now? We picked up the drive shaft today. It's already getting late in the night, so probably call it a night. But we gotta get it up on jack stands, get our drive shaft in there, get the speedometer gear installed in the transmission so that we can put the cable on and that's sealed up. And then we're ready to put some fluid in this thing and see if it'll actually crank. So I think we're getting really close, like maybe another hour's worth of work, and this thing should be ready to fire. So once Jimmy gets the drive shaft, we'll get all that in and see if we can make some smoke. Okay, so down to the nitty gritty. Got a late start tonight. Jimmy came by here and got a few things buttoned up. But we've got our drive shaft in underneath here, and our transmission lines are hooked up, and the vacuum line as well. So as far as I can tell, this thing's ready to set back down on the ground, and we can top it off with transmission fluid and cool it, and then we can push it outside and see if it'll actually run. Here we go. What the heck? No sparky at all. Pretty retarded. All right, let's advance her some, see what we got. I got a sneaky suspicion. I wonder if that, because remember we had that wire for the points. I wonder if this wire that we're using now doesn't have 12 volts going to the ignition when it's in start position. We need to put a meter on there and check it, because when I let off the key, that's when it fired and tried to run.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Turn it on?
Yeah, just turn the key on. Let's see what kind of voltage we have at the coil. Okay, so we have good voltage at the coil with the key on. Go ahead and try to crank it. Still good voltage. Okay, so the distributor I had was one that was sent back for inspection, and I was told that it works good, so we put it in there. But I'm thinking that was our problem because it's pretty straightforward small block Chevy stuff. So ripped that out, put a basic old HEI in there that I had laying in the shop. Figured we'll give that a try, see where we're at. Got to try something.
Good park?
Oh, helps when you put it in park. The safety switch actually works. Your local idiot here. Gosh dang it. My brain temporarily jumped out of gear. It always helps when you plug in the bottom of the distributor to the cap so that the module can communicate with the coil and actually make a spark.
Oh, that's the other one. Take it way forward.
Such an idiot. she's alive. All right, let's do this again so we can check timing and fluids.
Ain't nothing like that rumble on the ground.
Okay, I'm going to try to set the time in while you
Try to keep it running.
keep it going. Yeah, let's try to get it closer. All right, so last night it was getting a little late. Didn't want to be too loud and drive the neighbors crazy with the open headers on this car, so we called it a night. But back at it again today. I wasn't real happy with the carburetor last night. I had to have it idled up a little too far to try to get enough fuel coming through the transfer slots to keep the thing idling because it's a pretty thirsty engine. So we're going to change carburetors. So I had another Holley Street HP laying on the shelf that I figured we might as well throw on here because it has 4-corner idle mixture screws. So that's going to help us out quite a bit with adjustability to get this thing idling a little smoother and better, transition when we drop it in gear. The converter's plenty loose enough, but it was still trying to drop it just a skosh, and then the carburetor's, trying to chase and catch up, and it just wasn't as responsive as we wanted it to be. So time to go to a better carburetor. So gonna pull that one off and get this dude on here. Down leg boosters as well, so that's a pretty significant improvement. No choke though, so not saying this is going to be the final carburetor that'll be on this engine, but for getting it all up and running, I think it's going to be a better choice than what we have over there. That one's a little basic for how rowdy this engine is. All right, let's give her a shot with this other carburetor. Take it a second to fill up with gas too, I'm sure. Ooh. Yeah, much better. Give her a little more idle. We'll try it again. Go through the steps here. Let's give her a shot. All right, well, she's alive. So a couple things. We got to get another jug of coolant. It's, right there where we need just a little bit more in it before we can put a cap in it and seal the system off. Second thing, we need a radiator cap. Completely forgot one of those. The factory one that was on the old radiator, we, got rid of it with the radiator. So need to get a new cap. Third, when it's idling, I'm chasing it back and forth. You can get it to where the idle's coming down nice and smooth at a good, range, smooth idle, and then it tries to peter out. Bring the idle back up, and what it's doing, I put the timing light on it. When it tries to fall down, it starts to pull in the centrifugal weights inside the distributor and retards the timing, and it makes it fall even worse. Then you give it a little more throttle, and that naturally brings it up, but then it starts to sling the advanced weights out too, and that brings it up even more. So we got to get some heavier springs inside that distributor to get this thing to idle a lot better and get our curve to come in a little bit later than idle. So just some of those little adjustments you got to make. You don't know until you put this stuff together. A lot of distributors have heavy springs right out of the gate, but this one was one I had laying around, as you know, so it's probably just got some lighter springs in it, and we can't have that on this application. So we'll change out some springs and keep on keeping on. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Junk Riff Jr. I hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I did. It was a fun little test drive session. That car is a pretty good ripper for a heavy four-door car, and it's awesome to see a heavy four-door car like that nobody ever wants to mess with a nice rowdy motor in it. I kind of got a thing for four doors, and as they call it, it's a crew cab Chevelle, so why not? I mean, hey, if anybody can do it with two doors, only takes a few people to do it with four doors and get them babies in style. But she's a cool ripper. Thank y'all for watching Junk Riff Jr. Hope you enjoyed it. See y'all next time.